Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back. It's Hockey Talk here on PC3 Radio. We've got Sophia in the house, just had a great episode of Combat Talk. We got Emerson behind the board, but it's Hockey Talk. So, of course, here at PC3 Radio, we're joined by our resident hockey expert, the one and the only, Matt Isley. Matt, how you doing here on this Friday afternoon?
I'm doing pretty well, so it's great to be here, and it's a pleasure to be on my show, so thanks for joining. So today we're going to be talking about the Columbus Blue Jackets, the regular season, the final season of the schedule. As we take a look here, as you can tell, the Blue Jackets beat the Predators 8-4 and then lost to Colorado 7-3 for the last two games. And then we have the final regular season games, which the ones are outlined in white. You can tell they're on the road, and the ones in navy, you can tell these are actually home games.
All right, Matt. So tell me what has impressed you the most about the Blue Jackets over the course of those games mentioned, especially that Nashville game.
One thing that what actually got me impressed about is, I really liked, that hat trick when Kirill Marchenko actually scored a hat trick against Nashville, which was pretty cool. And I just kind of liked it. And it was, it was kind of cool, but I got to tell you, it was pretty awesome. But at least, I figured, but at least, hey.
So, Matt, let me stop you right there. For those that aren't familiar, and I know we discussed this before on Hockey Talk, but for the fans out there that might not be familiar with the game, what does a hat trick entail?
So, a hat trick means, usually it occurs when a single player scores 3 goals in a goal in a game, which usually occurs in either period, depending on how far the game goes. Whether it's overtime, whether it's regulation.
All right. And then what do the fans do once that hat trick happens? I know there's a special tradition that a lot of fans like to do when those 3 goals are scored.
Usually they throw hats onto the ice, and those hats get donated.
All right. That's pretty cool. It's a nice tribute to the player, especially for scoring 3 goals in a game. That's not the easy thing to do, is it?
Yeah, especially with Kirill Marchenko, who just got a hat trick in last Tuesday's game against the Nashville Predators with an 8-4 win over Nashville.
All right. So with the Blue Jackets, Matt, they're starting to make a playoff push, would you say?
Yeah, definitely. Hopefully right now they're in 4th right now. I would definitely consider that, but at least, hopefully. So, yeah.
Are you a big Blue Jackets fan, Matt?
Definitely.
Definitely. Okay. He's got some loyalty to Columbus, Ohio, the home of the Blue Jackets. Now, Matt, unfortunately for the Chicago fans, I don't know how well the Blackhawks are doing right now, but you did have a chance to attend a Blackhawks game the other night. Tell us about that.
So, yeah, I figure, it was awesome. I went there with Cal's Legacy on a Wednesday night. It was kind of an interesting thing. I went there. We arrived 2 hours early, which was pretty good. We kind of walked around the building just to get our steps in, and the game did start around 8:30 because it was a late game, because we had the chance to talk with Landon Slager after the game with Landon Slager. He's the guy from Notre Dame, but we got the chance to talk to him, so yeah, that was pretty cool.
And what was the final result of that game? Did the Blackhawks pull it out?
They actually lost in the shootout because the game went past regulation and overtime, but the Hawks did score 2 goals with Ilya Mikheyev and Carter Murphy.
All right. So, man, unfortunately right now I understand that the Hawks are not in playoff contention, but do you think they'll make some improvements and be back in contention next year, especially with their young nucleus like Connor Bedard?
Yeah, definitely. I have high hopes and high expectations for Bedard, since he's number 98, since he's from North Vancouver.
All right, North Vancouver. There you have it. So, Matt, right after this break, I understand you're going to break down some of the NHL playoff seedings, including some news on the Washington Capitals and some of the teams making a playoff push. Is that correct?
That's correct. We'll be right back on Hockey Talk. We'll be right back.
And welcome back to Hockey Talk. Mr. Harvoth here on PC3 Radio, joined by the one and the only, our hockey expert here at PC3, Matt Isley. Now, before the break, we talked a little bit about the Columbus Blue Jackets, the experience Matt had at the Blackhawks game earlier this week. But now it's time to talk playoffs. They're coming up quickly. On April 19th, the NHL Stanley Cup playoffs begin. We're less than 2 weeks away from all the action getting started. Matt, I understand a team that you want to talk about and that you should watch out for, and that all the fans actually should watch out for, are none other than the Washington Capitals. What can you tell us about them?
You know, Washington is actually one of the teams that we should, look. And I got figured, it's something interesting how they're doing. They did already clinch a playoff spot with Carolina, and it's just kind of an interesting thing. And we're still waiting on a couple more teams that they are looking for a big playoff push in that playoff contention, whether it's going to be clinch a playoff spot or playoff elimination contention from playoff contention, which they are eliminated.
So, Matt, who are some of the key players on the Capitals we should watch out for, especially as they make their push at the end of the season?
So, right there, I would say, TJ Oshie. Sometimes I gotta tell you, it's really interesting, but I gotta tell you, maybe Connor McMichael, maybe some other players, but I gotta tell you, it's really interesting how it is and really important. Maybe Brandon Duhaime, Nick Dowd, Pierre-Luc Dubois, Ryan Leonard, Connor McMichael, like I said, TJ Oshie, and then there you have it, Alex Ovechkin.
Alex Ovechkin is a legend right now in the game, and he's looking to add to his legacy as the Capitals hopefully will make a deep playoff run. Matt, what would you say their ceiling is this year? Could they actually hoist Lord Stanley's Cup come June?
Maybe, but we'll have to see to figure out who's going to go to the Stanley Cup Finals, when it starts in April. But we have a long way to go, but we'll see who can win the cup. But at least, Ovechkin's really doing well, and spoiler alert, he's 3 goals away.
3 goals away from what, Matt?
From breaking Gretzky's record, because he is certainly 3 goals away from breaking Gretzky's all-time record.
Well, man, anytime you hear the name Wayne Gretzky associated with a record in the world of hockey, and you're a player that's getting ready to break that record, man, that has some weight to it, Matt. What is that particular record that he's trying to break?
He's trying to break that, that record when he's trying to break that.
What record is it, Matt? Tell us.
I got to tell you, it's that all-time goal record.
All right.
Because it's really interesting. And I understand it's really hard, but I got to tell you, it's really hard, especially with all these players who can break the Gretzky record of all time.
Man, that would be something. He is the all-time GOAT in the world of hockey, and Ovechkin is slowly starting to creep up in that territory. It's kind of like you had Michael Jordan and LeBron James from different eras in the world of basketball, but now you're looking at Wayne Gretzky, Alex Ovechkin. The compare and contrast is going back and forth, so it's going to be interesting to see how Ovechkin finish his career, if he can get that record, and also maybe possibly with TJ Oshie and some of the players that you mentioned on the Capitals, add another Stanley Cup to his resume.
Yeah, definitely. That is really interesting. So I got to tell you, it's really interesting how that would actually be and something like that. But at least, yeah.
All right. And, Matt, one more team I wanted to ask you about that the fans out there have requested from Hockey Talk. Do you have any information on the St. Louis Blues? Because I understand they're starting to make quite the playoff push themselves as we head into those Stanley Cup playoffs coming up in the month of April. What do you think about the Blues?
Yeah, I would actually consider the Blues, so I would have to say, yeah, the Blues. They are interesting, so I would have to say, and they're really good, so I would have to say the Blues are really good. Some of the players are really good, especially with a couple of players.
Who do they have?
They have Jordan Kyrou, he's in Toronto. Brent Shen from Saskatoon. Jimmy Snuggerud, who came from the University of Minnesota when he just came back for his senior year.
Oh, we know you know him pretty well from that Big Ten.
Yep, there you go. And lastly, we have Robert Thomas from Aura, Ontario, Canada. And he's right there. So, yeah, there you have it.
All right. And what is the Blues ceiling for the Stanley Cup playoffs, Matt? What would you say?
I got to tell you, for the Blues, I got to tell you, they're really interesting in how high ranked they are currently in the standings. I understand how it is right now in the Western Conference in the Central Division, but I got to tell you, it's really something how it is. But, it's most important how it is.
West is a tough conference.
And
man.
it is a really tough conference because of it.
All right. So, with that being said, look for the Blues, the Capitals, different divisions, all kinds of teams kind of vying for their playoff spots here coming up. We're just barely 2 weeks away from the Stanley Cup playoffs. The puck's going to drop, and we're going to find out who's going to hoist Lord Stanley's Cup coming up in the month of June. We'll be out of school, but I know Matt will be watching all the games intently. Right, Matt?
That's right. You can also download the CHN Sports Chicago Sports Network app by downloading it. And one more thing, you can also play the Bracket Challenge by going to bracketchallengenhl.com.
All right. Always plug in the NHL stuff. So that's always Matt right here on Hockey Talk. So we got one more quick commercial break, and then we'll come back. We'll wrap up Hockey Talk with some predictions and some final comments from your hockey expert, Matt Isley. Matt?
We'll be right back.
And we're back here on PC3 Radio with Hockey Talk. Matt Isley, our final segment coming up. Matt, we talked a lot about the Stanley Cup playoffs, the Capitals, the Blues. We talked about your experience at the Blackhawks game, what they're looking forward to for next season. But let's get down to business. Tell us about the current standings in the NHL and where everyone is at with 2 weeks to go.
I got to tell you, in the Eastern Conference for Atlantic Division, I understand how it is. But I got to tell you right now, the Maple Leafs are currently in first right now, and they just clinched a playoff spot. The Lightning and also the Panthers have not clinched a playoff spot yet, but they're looking on the hunt if the Lightning and Panthers can both clinch a playoff spot as well, along with the Washington Capitals and the Hurricanes and the Devils. The Devils is the only one that has not been clinched yet, but I'm looking for the Devils are looking for a playoff spot. Like I said, the Capitals and the Hurricanes have already clinched a playoff spot right now. Some still waiting on New Jersey, but at least, hey. And right now we have the teams in the wild card at least, yeah. For Western Division, we have Winnipeg, Dallas, and Colorado. And I know that Winnipeg, Dallas, and Colorado all have clinched a playoff spot. And look at that, Colorado has already clinched a playoff spot. For Pacific Division, the Vegas has already clinched a playoff spot. The Kings and the Oilers are still waiting on the playoff spot, but will be waiting on the playoff spot, whether they clinch it or not.
Matt, let me ask you a question. I got a friend out there. His name's Jeff. He is a big fan of the Vancouver Canucks. Can they make it in, or is it too late for Vancouver?
With a couple of games to go, they can still try to get into the playoff spot, whether it will be right in or not. But we'll see to figure out whether the Canucks can do it or not. But
all right, we'll see what happens.
Make or break.
All right, make or break. We're in our final 2 weeks. So, Matt, as we wrap up our show here, let's get some predictions on the board right here. So we just went over all the standings. Matt, let me ask you, face-to-face, right here on PC3 Radio on Hockey Talk, how are these playoffs going to look? Who do you think makes it to the East and West Finals, and who is going to be hoisting that beautiful cup?
I got to tell you, it's really interesting how it is. I understand the predictions, but let's get right down to it.
Do it.
So starting with the, in the first round, I gotta tell you for the first round of the East, I would say probably, the Blue Jackets and maybe the Flyers, I guess.
Okay.
But okay. So probably the Blue Jackets are going to be favored to win. And I gotta tell you, it's really interesting. But I gotta tell you, the Blue Jackets are going to win it 7-4.
Whoa, oh, okay. He's not only making playoff predictions, he's making score predictions. Only here exclusively on Hockey Talk. Matt, what else?
Also, I figured starting with the April predictions, I got to tell you, for the last regular seasons right now for tonight, the Capitals are playing the Blackhawks, and they are going to be, the Capitals are favored to win at Capital One Arena in Washington, D.C., and the Capitals are favored to win, and the Capitals will actually win it 6-4.
Man, another score prediction. You heard it here first from Matt Isley. Matt, as we finish up our episode today, let me put you on the spot. Okay, I ask you this every episode. Have things changed at all? Who's winning the cup?
I gotta tell you, it's something that's really gonna do it. But man, it's hard. But in this case, I would have to go with Columbus. And Columbus is gonna be
Columbus.
Yeah, the Blue Jackets, and one of the players we should be watching out for is Zach Werenski, number 8.
Number 8.
And he's from Columbus, Ohio.
Okay, so he's playing for his hometown NHL team.
Yes.
Wow, you don't see that very often. That's really cool.
Yes.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So here you go. Matt Isley saying it right here on the radio and our live stream right there. Hopefully you're watching on YouTube. Matt Isley is saying here today in April of 2025 that he thinks the Blue Jackets have what it takes to hoist the Stanley Cup. Matt, we're going to find out what happens next time, because I'm going to keep asking you. Every time we do an episode here of Hockey Talk, we're going to check in. We're going to look at those standings. And then on April 19th, those playoffs are going to get started. We're going to make our playoff predictions. And then you're going to tell me if your thoughts on the Blue Jackets have changed at all. Does that sound good?
Sounds good.
Perfect, perfect. Well, that'll wrap it up here for another episode of Hockey Talk. Matt, it's always a pleasure letting me sit in on these shows with you and talking some hockey.
Yeah, definitely. It's great to be here on my show, so thanks for joining. So
Absolutely.
I want to say thank you, but at least, hey, if you like this show, you know what to do. Catch the crazy and pass it on, and we'll see you next time.
There we have it from Matt Isley right here on Hockey Talk. We want to thank Emerson, who's been behind the board producing our show. Of course, Mr. Jennings at home taking care of his daughter. We wish her a speedy recovery. And as far as our hockey predictions go, we'll see if the Blue Jackets can hold tight. So, Matt, thank you again. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
And we'll see you next time.
Right here on PC3 Radio's Hockey Talk.